In progress. Good morning, students. I am Dr. Balarudi, Assistant Professor in the Department of Economics. So, students, in today's class, we are going to discuss about inflation. See, inflation in the sense there is the increase in the general price level is normally considered as inflation. So, there is a substantial increase in the general price level of goods and services over a given period of time is considered as inflation. So the increase is the persistent increase or substantial increase in the general price level. That is normally we are saying that inflation. Right. Now let us clearly discuss about the different definitions given by different authors. See, according to Goldman, this inflation in the sense inflation can be defined as too much of money chasing too few goods. See, we are having too much of money and we are giving too much of money in the market and we are purchasing only too few goods. It is considered as the inflation because the price level is very high. Therefore, we need more money for the purchase of too few goods. That is the definition given by Goldman. Then we can see one more definition, that is according to Parkin and Bird, inflation is an upward movement in the average price level. So it is an upward movement in the average price level, and at the same time it is just opposite to the deflation, because deflation in the sense it is a downward movement in the average price level. So the boundary between this inflation as well as deflation is the price stability. According to this Samuelson, it is a rise in the general price level. So these are the different definitions given by different authors. Now let us concentrate on the different types of inflation. See, normally there are four main types of inflation. One is creeping inflation. Second one is walking inflation. Third one is galloping inflation. And the fourth one is hyperinflation. These are four different types. Let us concentrate one by one. First, if we see this creeping inflation, see, suppose the price increases 3% per year or less than 3%, it is considered as creeping inflation normally. According to the Federal Reserve, when price increases 2% or less than this 2%, it benefits economic growth. So this kind of mild inflation makes the consumer expect the prices will keep going up. Therefore, it boosts the demand consumers buy now to beat higher future prices. So that's how mild inflation drives economic expansion. So for that reason, the Fed sets 2% as its target inflation rate. Then the second type is walking inflation. This type of strong or pernicious inflation is between 3% to 10% per year. Actually, it is harmful to the economy because it heats up the economic growth too fast. So people start to buy more than they need just to avoid tomorrow's much higher prices. This drives demand even further so that the suppliers can keep up. More important, neither can wages. As a result, common goods and services are priced out of the reach of most people. Then the next type is the galloping inflation. So normally this galloping inflation in the sense inflation rises to 10% or more than 10%, it is considered as galloping inflation. So it brings absolute havoc on economy. Money loses value so fast that business and employee income cannot keep up with the cost and prices. So foreign investors avoid the country, depriving it of needed capital. The economy becomes unstable the economy becomes unstable as well as government leaders lost credibility. So this galloping inflation must be prevented at all costs. The next type of inflation is hyperinflation. See, hyperinflation is when prices actually more than 50% per month, it is considered as hyperinflation. Whenever inflation arises or the increase prices are more than 50%, it is considered as hyperinflation. See, actually, it is very rare. In fact, most examples of this hyperinflation has occurred when the government printed money to pay for bonds. Then the next type is stagflation. So stagflation is when economic growth is stagnant, but still there is a problem of inflation. It is considered as stagflation. Now let us consider about the different causes of inflation. So actually we have demandful inflation as well as costful inflation also. See, demandful inflation in the sense, the first reason is demandful inflation. Because it happens when the demand for certain goods and services are greater than the economy's ability to meet those demands. It is considered the demandful inflation. Then the second reason is the cost push inflation. See, it is the increase of prices when the cost of wages and materials goes up. These costs are often passed down to consumers in the form of higher prices for those goods and services. Then the third cause is increased money supply. If the money supply increases faster than the rate of production, this could result in inflation, particularly demandful inflation. Then the next reason is devaluation. See, devaluation in the sense it is a downward adjustment in a country's exchange rate, resulting in lower values for a country's currency. And the next reason is rising wages. See, rising wages should allow consumers to combat inflation. The rising wages allow consumers to pay higher prices without impacting their purchasing power. The next reason is policies and regulations. See, certain policies can also result in either a cost push or demandful inflation. When the government issues tax subsidies for certain products, it can increase demand. If that demand is higher than supply, cost could increase. So these are the main reasons for inflation. So in today's class, we have clearly discussed about the meaning of inflation, what are the different types of inflation. At the same time, what are the reasons for inflation and how to measure or how to control this inflation. See, the first measure to control this inflation is monetary policy. With the help of monetary policy, we can reduce inflation. At the same time, we can control this inflation with the help of money supply because the monetarists, they argue there is a close link between this money supply as well as inflation. Therefore, controlling this money supply also one of the main way to control this inflation. Then the next measure is supply side policies. The policies to increase the competitiveness and efficiency of the economy, putting downward pressure on the long-term cost. And the next thing is fiscal policy. So fiscal policy also control this inflation. Say we can increase the tax or government can reduce the spending. So through these changes in these tax as well as expenditure burden of the government also, we can change this inflation. Then the last measure is wage control. So trying to control wages could in theory help to reduce the inflationary measures. However, apart from the 1970s, it has been rarely used. So these are the different ways to control the inflation. So these are the important concepts in this today's class. Thank you, friends.